Hello crafty friends, welcome to another card making tutorial. Today I'm going to be using some of this watercolour paper that I've just inherited from my late aunt. She actually passed away about 20 years ago, so this is quite an old paper pad, and you can tell that because the price on it is £1.82. I don't think you could get a single sheet of watercolour paper for £1.82 these days. But I thought I'd use it today, kind of in remembrance of my aunt, and while I made a birthday card for my father-in-law. For my painting, I'm going to use my Mungyo watercolour paints. They are kind of student grade paints, quite inexpensive, but they do a pretty good job. And all I'm doing here is watering down some paint so that I've got some paint ready to go onto some wet paper. So I took my water spray and a watery paintbrush and brushed a layer of water all over the paper, then picked up my paints and added those to the wet paper. And this gave me quite a nice light pastel wash. The colours soaked in and mixed and mingled quite prettily. But it wasn't quite bold enough for me for the card idea that I had in mind. So I set this aside to dry and it will go in my box of backgrounds and bits. Next, I took another piece of the paper and I went in with a wet on dry technique. The previous one you'd call wet on wet because it was wet paint on wet paper. This time it's wet paint on dry paper. And instead of using watered down paint, I wet my paintbrush and just kind of picked up the paint straight from the half pans just to give me some nice bold colour. I decided to go with blues and greens because my father-in-law is a keen sailor and the blues and the greens always remind me of the sea, and obviously you sail on the sea. So once I was happy with my more bold piece of paper, I dried it with my hairdryer. And then I put some more of the blue and green paint on my mat, picked it up with a smusher and smushed it on top to bring in a bit of texture, energy, movement and a kind of splashy sea feeling. Again, I dried this with my hairdryer, and then to bring in some shimmer and shine and a pop of contrast, I spritzed on some Lindy's Stamp Gang Moon Shadow Mist spray. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's a kind of brown with a gold shimmer in it, and I thought that would work well. Again, I dried it with my hairdryer, and then I took 4 candle dies and cut out a ton of candles from the blue-green paper. I pulled a brown paper out of my box of backgrounds and bits that I'd made using that shimmer spray that I just used, and cut out a load of candles with those. I wanted to give my candles gold flames, so I pressed the flame part of my die cuts onto my embossing ink pad to make them sticky. I then dipped the flames into some gold embossing powder, and then I heated them with my heat tool. That was my candles all prepared. Next I worked on the front panel of my card. I cut a piece of linen textured white cardstock down to 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches. I then cut from the centre Happy Birthday using Happy Birthday dies, funnily enough. And then I put some high-tack white glue on a silicone mat, spread it out with my glue spreader, dipped my candles in and then placed them all around the outside of my panel of card, having the flames pointing like arrowheads towards the greeting. I started by placing a candle in each corner and then I just filled in the rest of the gaps. Once I was happy with the placement, I used a spare piece of sticker release paper to burnish everything down, make sure it was pressed firmly and stuck firmly onto my panel. I used my scissors and guillotine to trim off the overhanging bits of candle. And then I flipped the panel over and put 1mm deep foam tape on the back, just to give a little bit of lift to the panel once it was on the card. I did make sure to place the double-sided foam tape over the apertures of the Happy Birthday sentiment so that the apertures would be sticky, because my intention was to die cut out the words Happy Birthday from some gold foil cardstock and inlay the letters back into those holes. And by having the apertures sticky, it meant I didn't have to fiddle with getting glue on my letters or taking release paper off the back of my letters, that kind of thing. The card blank itself was 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. So it had a little bit of a white border all the way around the outside, and that was this card done. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's given you some more ideas. If you want more birthday card candle ideas, there are a couple of other videos linked below, so do check those out. And I hope to see you back here very soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.